Welcome back. Today is the fifth lecture of Node.js. In it, we will see what is an HTTP server. We will see the details of HTTP server, the request object, the response object, what are its properties, how can we set different properties. We will see the URL module, how can we use the URL module. Then we will see an exemplary external module, that is node static. We are taking an example of node static, that is an external module, how to include that module into our project and how to use that module. So these are the three basic things. Our today's lecture will be divided into basically three parts. In the first part, we will see the HTTP URL and route module part. The second part will be related to the node static, and the third part will be a coding practice as usual. So let's start. First, we will see the HTTP and URL module. HTTP module can create an HTTP server that listens to server ports and gives a response back to the client. As we have created a sample HTTP web server with the with a server call of create server, http.create server, and then .listen. The server executes the create server callback each time a request is received from a client. Whenever a client send a request, it will actually calls a callback. The function passed into the HTTP create server method will be executed when someone tries to access the computer on a specific port. The port number will be given with the listen command. There is an option .close that stops the server from listening or accepting new connections, and there is .listen, which actually starts the HTTP server and listen for connections. It will listen continuously, so alternatively it is an on function. It has two parameters. The callback has two parameters. One is the request object and second is the response object. We will see one by one. The request object, we will see first the request object, what are its properties, what are its arguments, and then we will see the response object. The HTTP request object argument contains information about header, method, and requested URL. So request object can have three properties. The first property is the header information. If there is some header information passed by the client, by the end user with the header, so that information will be with the header, request.header. And second thing is method, which is called the verb, like get, post, put, patch, delete, etc. There can be a number of methods we will see today. You have studied get and post in last class, sorry, in last subject, that is web engineering 1 subject. But in this system, in REST API system, we will use multiple methods. Each method will have its own meaning. So method can be a put, can be a post, can be a get, can be a patch, can be a delete, etc, etc, etc. So we will fetch the method using the request dot method. Third thing, the third property which it holds is the URL, the requested thing by your end user. That is is actually request.url. The request object has a property called URL, which holds the part of URL that comes after the domain name. So it will automatically exclude the domain name. The remaining part will be the part of request.url. The URL is the full URL without the server, protocol, or port number. So don't worry about the first thing. These will be excluded automatically using the node. The request.header will provide you header information. Here you can see you have two options. If you use request and response whole word in your callback, like request request comma response response, se. So if you use the full keywords, so you will use here the full keyword, like request will be request. If you will use in the callback function req, you can use the req onward also. I will explain it by example in the programming part. So request.url, request.header, and request.method. So these are the three properties which contains with the request object. What are the methods possible in your REST API or Node? These are some of the examples. You can see there are lot and lot of methods available which can be used, but mainly we will use get. This is the get. We will use the delete. We will use the head sometime. We will use options, patch, post, put. These are the methods we will use in our REST API. You can use other one also, but in a normal crude application, these methods are used. So these methods will be used onward. So these are the methods all possible by you can send to a server. No, the response object. For the request object, you have three properties. I'm explaining it again. Request.url, request.header, request.method. So these are the three properties. Now response is the thing which will be sent back to the basically your end user. Request is what you receive from the end user, and response is what you provide to the end user. So the response argument on the other hand contains information regarding server response. So we will create our own response. If the response from the HTTP server is supposed to be displayed as HTML, you should include an HTTP header with the correct content type or MIME type, that it will be an HTML. You have three possibilities here also. You can use response.writehead. Writehead is used to provide the code, status code, and the MIME type, response header. So here you are telling the compiler that 200 the page is found and the content which I am sending is of type HTML. So the first call that can be attached to the response object is response.writehead, and then writing the actual response. Data is written using zero or more response.write calls. If you want to write multiple strings, multiple things from multiple sources, you can use response.write. Write method will write the information into the response but will not send it to the end user. After all the data has been written, the server completes the connection with a single mandatory call, response.end. Response.end is a mandatory call. If you have only few things to send to the end user, you can directly write into the response.end. But if you analyze, process multiple things, and you want to write it time to time into your response and then collectively send the response to the client, then you should use response.write. Response.write can be there into your project or cannot be there zero or more time, but it is mandatory to call response.end. That means that the entire response can be written via the response.end. Either you can write the response.end or you will write the code into response.write. If you want to send multiple lines response, you can use the backtick. This is the new mechanism. Backtick is another way which tells the compiler that you are sending a multi-line string. So start with the backtick and end with the backtick. All the data into this code is a string, actually a string, multi-line string. So this is a new way out uh, to send the response. This is an example. The basic server sends back a single response header, counter type, a 200 response status code, and a body hello world. You can see here we are calling response.writehead 200, content type text plain. We are not sending the HTML. If we want to send the HTML, we will replace it with HTML, and we are sending a string that is response.end. We are not using response.write in this example. What are the status code? As I have explained you in last lecture, there are number of status code. You can see 404 is used for not found. 404 is page level errors. Your 300 is actually a page movement or something like this, and 200 is your actually okay type of things, like 200 is okay, 201 is created, 202 is accepted, 203 is non-authorized information. So you can use any of these status code relevantly, you can use unauthorized 401, 402 payment required, 403 forbidden, 404 not found. These are all different status code that can be used with your these are all, many others are there. These are from 0 to 511. So they everyone has a different meaning. Like 500 means a server level error. You normally go with 3 4 type of status code. One is the 500, that means if the database is down, you send a 500 error. If your page is not available, then 404 will be sent. If the person is not authenticated, 403 will be sent. If the page is okay, then you will send 200. So these are normally all the status codes that are required. Our second module is URL module. Now you will get a basic URL from basically request.url with request.url. After request.url, now you need to parse that URL and get the information from that URL. The URL module splits up a web address into a readable parse. Parse an address with the url.parse function. So it has mainly a one function, that is url.parse, and it will return a URL object with each part of the address as property as seen in the next slide. You will see URL module is applied normally on request received in node.js server. This is an exemplary URL. HTTPS colon double backslash user colon password at the rate. This is your URL. This is your port number. This is your path page, and then your query string question mark, etc., etc., etc. This can be a sample request from the client. It has multiple parts. This is called the protocol part. This is username, this is password, this is called authentication part. This is basically host has two part, host name and port. This is that means it is your server. And after that, the first these information will be excluded in your request.url. So your request.url will contain this information. Now you will parse this information, it will subdivide it again. This will be a path slash the page name and the colon your query string, that will be your search query. So there are two main points you will use. The first is the path name, and second is your query. So we will see an example. This is an example URL. We have included a URL and we have taken a static variable, static URL. That means it is a string. We will parse it. This is http colon double backslash localhost colon 8081 default.html year 2017 and month and this etc. We parse this URL, this ADR into queue. Now if I print queue.host, you will see the queue.host will print this part, the server name plus port name. So it will print localhost colon port name. If I will print queue.pathname, you can see queue.pathname contain the actually page with slash. So it will print slash default.html. So it will include slash and then default.html, not the question mark before the question mark. So this is your path name. Then I will print the queue.search. Queue.search will print from here to here. question mark to your February, end of February. Now I want to convert this into an object. What I will do, well, I will use q.query. Okay, you can see this is q search. I used q.query. If I will use q.query, it and placing it into q.data. So alternatively, it will convert all these parameters into an object. I can print q.data.month. Now the February will be printed. So alternatively, this object will be converted into, sorry, this string will be converted into object. Year is equal to 2017 and month is equal to February. So I can print q data dot month, q data dot year. So for the month it will print the February, and for the year it will print 2017. So this is the use of url.parse. Last but not least, it is the most important part, which you will use again and again and again. Please do understand this. Route. What is route? You can say it a route or route, whatever the accent it is. You can say, I will say the route. The combination of an HTTP verb means the method, and the requested URL is as route. Keep in mind, it is a combination of two things. Like slash abc, it is a url, requested url. I have requested from the server um, example.com slash abc. Now slash abc is the url which I have requested, but it is not a route, it is simply a url. No, what is a route? A route is a combination of url plus verb. Now a compiler, oh, sorry, a browser requested slash abc with the get method. Now get plus slash abc is the route. Same ab slash abc can be called with the post. Same abc can be called with the put. Same abc can be called with the delete. So route is actually a combination of verb plus URL. Notice that the requested URL is available via request.url, while the HTTP verb is available with the request.method. We will use this route to get request and write response accordingly. So what is a route? Route is a combination of two things: the method plus the URL. Request.url is equal to slash. User has requested for the slash, and he has requested with the method get. So combination of these two things is called a route. So we are writing a route. We always write a route. Like user has requested this, and for this method and this URL, we are sending the content. Same, the user can be called a request for slash and with the method post. So that will be a different route at all. So keep in mind, route is the combination of two things: your method, requested method, and requested URL. Same, else if the user has requested slash account and the method is equal to this, we can send any information. Here we are sending the information using right head and end. And else, if any other route is called, you will send a 404 page simply. So this is an example of a route. Here we have written two specific routes and one generic route, that anything outside these two routes will be routed to this router. So route is combination of URL, requested URL plus the method. This slash account can be called with the get, with the post, with the delete, with the put methods. All the methods with this combined will be called our route. This is another example. Just go through this example. HTTP FS URL. We are creating the web server. We are parsing the request. No, we are printing the request. We are reading the file. If error, we are printing the error. Else, that means the file is available. We are writing the content to the end user. So this is a simple example in which we are basically extracting the information as we like. If in node case, if the method is equal to post, that means the server has sent some variables. Sorry, the browser has sent some variables. For the server side, we have to listen on the request.on, and it will read a chunk by chunk into a body, and we are converting this chunk into string, buffer to string, and at the end we will get all the data from the like if a client send a form data, to receive the form data we will apply a listener on it, on the data field. So data is the event here, and on is the listener on the request object. It is actually a event emitter. Request it is emitting the event of data, and we are reading using on. And when the data will be received, it will be in the shape of chunk. What we are doing, we are adding this chunk into an uh, empty string. So alternatively, we will get a complete string from the user, what the user has sent to us, and we will save it into a body. This is a way out with which we can receive the post variables from the client. This is another way out of, you can use the switch also. You can use regular expressions also for your basically routes. That is all for the first part. We will see in the next part. Thank you.